so welcome to everyone who's here, and welcome to the webinar around customer centricity, a very topical and important issue for organisations, public sector, private sector, not only in Australia but globally. Just a very brief introduction in terms of what we do. Just bear with me 1 second. Yes. So, with the strategy group, we are at the leading edge of innovation thinking. We help predominantly large organisations in the corporate space, government space, solve problems in a very different way. We're very focused on methodologies such as design thinking, Eric Ries's lean startup methodology. We're very focused at the moment around customer centricity. Most organisations are very focused on how to put the customer in the centre, and we're working with many organisations, large and small, around customer-centric strategy, and the even hotter topic at the moment is around the employee experience. We're very strong on focusing on experiences. We believe that organisations today offer not products and in fact not services, but experiences, and that customer experience and the employee experience is key to organisation success moving forwards. Just very briefly, a couple of points about myself. So I'm Managing Director of the Strategy Group. There are actually pillars to my life. We have a growing and successful organisation in the Strategy Group, which I run. I'm also adjunct professor at the Australian Graduate School of Management and AGSM Fellow. I'm responsible for innovation and entrepreneurship at AGSM. And I'm also an angel investor, so I have about 7 startup investments, which takes me into the intersection of the corporate and government world, from the strategy group, the academic world, AGSM, and the startup world in the entrepreneurial space. And I hope to bring much of that thinking into this webinar this morning. In terms of some of our clients, I'll just briefly show you some of them. They range across all verticals: retail, transport, telecommunications, fruit and vegetables, Asia Pacific, Australia as well, government, both state government and federal government, property, and financial services. So wide range of clients, and we're very proud of our client list. So I'd like to kick off talking about a topic that's really important for us to spend a few minutes chatting about, and that's about this power shift. So if you wind the clock back 5 years and you wanted to travel, how would we do that? Well, you'd go to a travel agent, for example. The only people who could actually issue tickets, the only people who could actually tell you what flights are on, the only people who could tell you about hotels were travel agents held that power. Of course, that's significantly changed. So now if we go to travel, we can book the flights ourselves, we can we can look at reviews on TripAdvisor. The power has significantly shifted from the organisation to us. And we're seeing that shift happen across all verticals. So travel is one example. Retail is obviously another one. If I can't get from the store that I want at the price that I want, I will go elsewhere. The consumer has got the power, financial services. I want my credit card delivered in the next 2 hours. I want my loan approved in the next 3 hours. And if you can't do it, organisation, I'll go elsewhere. And that power shift from the organisation to the consumer, we believe, is only going to continue. And this will be sort of a thread through the webinar this morning, because it's really important for us to understand that the organisation, while it might think it has the power, and while it might think it knows what the consumer wants, it actually doesn't have the power. And as technology and online access continues to escalate as it is doing at the moment, So more and more and more, the power will shift with the consumer, which leads us to reviewers have to not just give the consumer what they want, not what they need. We need to be able to delight the consumer in a way that astonishes them. Which leads to this first concept I want to introduce, which is the concept of strategy from the outside in. If you think to yourself for a couple of minutes around what are your KPIs, what do you want to achieve over the next 6 months for the organisation you're in? And this may be a public organisation, private sector organisation, doesn't matter. And if you just reflect for a minute or two on what are the goals for the next 6 months in your organisation. And I put it to you that most of you will have goals like, we want to grow 10%, we want to reduce costs 5%, we want to increase our market share, we want to, go into another vertical. With all of those, and they're very valid programs. The challenge with all of those side strategies. So those are strategies from within the organisation out, but to the customer has no interest in an inside-out strategy. So if I'm standing in Coles, for example, I have no interest in Coles' growth strategy, customer acquisition strategy, market share strategy. All I'm interested in is what the organisation is going to do for me. And so we introduced this concept, and this comes from a professor at Berkeley today who wrote a book around this. And it's the concept of strategy from the outside in and strategy from the inside out. So most of us have a strategy from the inside out. But what's important for us to do is have a corresponding strategy of an outside-in strategy, a strategy that comes from the outside in and that's relevant to the customer. Let me give you an example. 1 second. Just chat if you have problems hearing. As far as I'm concerned, I'm connected. 1 or 2 people saying that they can't they can't get here. So I'm going to continue. If you have problems please just put a message on the chat, and so that we know. So let me tell you a little story that happened to me a few months ago around an RMA. Just 1 second. Yeah. So apologies. Just wanted to check that we have audio. So about 4 or 5 months ago, I get in the car, start the car, and nothing happens. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. You turn the ignition, nothing actually happens. And so what do? I call an RMA. So I get the phone, and of course, what do I get? I get a message, your call is important to us. 30 minutes to the message of your call is important to us. I get connected to an operator. I say, look, my car doesn't start. Could you please send a van? The person at the other end says, what's your registration number? I give them a registration number, and they say, look, I'm sorry, sir, your membership's expired. And I reached into my pocket and I say, okay, look, let me give you my credit card number, and please register, pay my credit card number, reinstigate my membership, and let's get going. And they say, well, unfortunately, sir, your membership expired 2 years ago, and we need to enter you again as a member. Okay, so I say, all right, let's do it. So then she says, well, what's your first name? What's your second name? What's your address? I'm thinking, you've got all of this. So I give them all these details, and then she says, well, I now need to play you 3 recordings of our terms and conditions, and you need to answer yes to each of these recordings. So I go, really? Like, you know, what am I doing here? Am I, you know, taking out a home mortgage? So I say, okay, play me the recordings. So she says, yeah, play recording 1, and I go, yes. Play, I mean, you never listen to any of this stuff. Play recording 2, yes. Play recording 3, yes. Okay, so now how much is it? And she says, well, it's like this. It's $230 for 2 years, but the first year is free. And I think to myself, what's a really weird pricing strategy? The first, you know, okay, fine. $230 for 2 years, pay my $230. I'm now saying, and so, well, now can you send the van? They say, well, no, unfortunately, you know, with tip, I now need to pass you on to roadside assistance. So 15 minutes later in the queue, you know, your call is important to us. I say, can you send the van? I'm now a member. They say, yes, you're now a member. We'll send the van. And they say, our first offering is that the van will turn up within an hour. Okay. 45 minutes later, the van's up. The guy checks the battery, says, well, I say, do you need do I need a new battery? He says, well, it depends. He says, well, the battery is just 2 days out of warranty, and I can either start the car for you and you can drive it around, or I can give you a new battery. What do you want to do? I said, look, there's 2 days of warranty. Surely you'll give me a new battery. He says, no. Our rules are it needs to be exactly within warranty. What do you want to do? And I say, well, start the car. I'll drive it around. We'll see what happens. So he started the car. He left. Went home. Got in the car the next morning. Went to start the car. Sure enough, car doesn't start. What do? Call NRMA. This is 220 minutes on the phone. Your call is important to us. We'll be with you as soon as you can. I take on over roadside assistance. I tell them what happened. They say, okay, we'll send a battery van. How long will it take for the battery van to come? Well, our service offering is within the next hour. Okay. I wait for the battery van. But 2 people turn up. This is what happened. I need a new battery. They change the battery, and they say, how much do I owe you? And they say, well, were you given a quote? And I think, well, that's another really weird question. You know, like if I say the battery costs $150 and I say I give a quote for, you know, $170, will they pocket the other $20? I don't know. As it was, I looked up the cost of the battery on the website was $130. I say it's $130. They go, okay, great, it's $130. So I pay for the battery with my credit card. They drive off. I get in the car to drive off myself, and sure enough, I have no keys. What had happened is that I'd given the keys to the NRMA people, the battery people, and they'd used the keys to test the battery once they installed it, and they'd driven off with the keys. What do? Yep, call NRMA. 30 minutes in the queue. You know, your call is important to us. We'll get to you as soon as possible. And say this and this and this happened. And the lady says, look, I'm really sorry this happened to you. I'll call the people you know, who replaced your battery. She comes back and says, unfortunately, they've gone to a job far away. They can't come back. You just have to wait till they finish that job, and then they'll bring the keys back. And I said, look, there's 2 of them. I need to go. One of them could bring me my keys back in the van while they're doing the other job. And she says, no, our policy is that there are always 2 people on a job at any time. So I wait for the hour. Eventually they return the keys. They're public, and I drive, you know, and drive off. Now, from an inside-out perspective, you know, from an outside-in perspective, it was a pretty dreadful experience. But I put it to you that within NRMA, there were high fives and cheering and red lights flashing and confetti from the ceiling. from an inside-out perspective. So let's just try and understand what went on here. So from an outside-in perspective, I rang in RMA and I was put on hold. And I waited and waited and waited. I wanted to renew my membership. I couldn't easily renew my membership. I was asked some ridiculous questions, 3 questions that made no sense to me. I had to pay $230. I didn't actually want to pay $230. All I really wanted was to pay for someone to come and look at my battery. I had to wait 45 minutes for the van, long time. I had to ring again because of the car didn't start. I had to buy a battery on the second call round, and my keys were taken, and I had to wait an hour for the keys to come back. A pretty dreadful customer experience. But look at it from the outside in view, from within an RMA. So NRMA would have had guidelines around which time, around how long it should take for them to answer the phone. And guess what? They answer the phone, I'm sure, within the guidelines that they've set internally. Tick the box. And the receptionist has transferred me to sales. So she probably has some KPIs around when people ring, try and get them to sign up again. So there would have been a KPI met by the receptionist to actually transfer me to the sales department. Ridiculous, yes. So there were KPIs internally to get the customer to answer these 3 recordings, and I did. And guess what? They made a sale. I mean, high five, another tick, another goal towards the KPIs. Someone will get a bonus. There'll be a mark against their name. Yep, you made a sale today, sort of thigh slapping and back slapping, because, NRMA membership's not really on the up, it's on the decline. And guess what? We've signed up a new member. How exciting. So, and I'm sure the driver of the battery, the driver with the battery van in 45 minutes, their guy ticked that box. They completed the job. And guess what? They then, the battery van, and they sold me a battery. So the driver came, the first, completed the job, started my car. The battery van got dispatched within the frame again, and I bought a battery. They sold me a battery. So on the left-hand side, we have a pretty dreadful customer experience. From an inside-out perspective, I'm sure NRMA is sitting there going, yep, we made a sale, we signed up a person, we sent 2 drivers, the job was complete. What more? So what's really important is to build an outside-in view. And each of you on the call, when you were thinking inside-out view, to go away from the down with your team and go, yep, we understand what our inside-out strategy is. What's our outside way? What's really relevant to the customer? A.G. Lafley, CEO of Procter & Gamble, very large organization, global organization, said, if I'm going to look at the PowerPoint deck, and any of you in the company deck, and you can't show me in the first slides why this PowerPoint is of any relevance to our customers, I'm not going to look at the PowerPoint deck. Because unless there's an in thinking built into everything that we do, it is of no relevance. So what we need to do with this pyramid, so most organizations spend a lot of time talking about why our customers should like us. If only they understood what our products, good they were, they'd buy more. Why our products in the market, but we just need to market them. And why our company is the industry lead, and what so well, and we've got products and services that the organization that our customers want, and customers should really understand this. This is an inside-out view of the world. The outside-in view of the world is to turn this upside down, to spend time focusing on their world, their things, and build into in our empathy with their what we actually want to achieve. There's significant focus globally on the customer experience, and we're going to keep using the word experience throughout this webinar. And I went to an interesting talk in the US by the people who wrote the book, The Power of Moments. It's a new book by Dan and Chip Heath. And Chip Heath was talking about most customers start off being underwhelmed. And most organizations try and move customers being underwhelmed to being whelmed. And most organizations feel that if they can move customers from being underwhelmed to whelmed, they've done their job. You know, yep, we've given you what you want. Yes, our service promises X. We've delivered our service. Our value, you know, we say we'll send the van within an hour. If we send the van within 45 minutes, then that's okay. You're now whelmed. However, the opportunity for us is overwhelm the customer. When I talk about customer, I mean both internal and external. It's not just a B2C discussion. Every one of us in our organization is an internal customer or an external customer. What we want to try and work out how we move our customers from being underwhelmed, not just to whelm, but to overwhelm, so they're delighted. So we actually want to create experiences that delight the customer. If you reflect, just take a couple of minutes to think back over the past year. What do we remember? What do we remember in our lives? You know, we don't remember products, we don't remember services. What we remember are experiences. You know, the experience that we had, the experience that we had on a trip, the experience that we had dealing with a company or an organization that delighted us. We remember experiences. So it's no longer sufficient in 2018 to be pushing great products, great services. What we need is to think through, how can we create experiences? And delight is a really important word. It's not just satisfying them. It's not just giving them a little more that they want. This picture that you see on the screen, about to come up on the screen, comes from an analyst report from Amazon. It's the analyst source on message. The way it works is how Amazon get growth, and I just want to, you know, the two words on the right of your screen, which is customer experience. And the way this works is as follows. If you know, a customer experience that delights its customer, that will generate more traffic. More traffic will bring more sellers into the Amazon marketplace. You know, Amazon's got sort of the stuff they sell in the Amazon marketplace. If there are more sellers in the Amazon marketplace, that will generate more selection for the customer. And when people increase selection for the customer with a lower cost structure and lower prices, you get a delightful customer experience that in turn drives more traffic and more sellers and more selection, and give you customer experience, which combined give you outstanding growth. Growing not just through its traditional online retail, but recently over the past days, you may have seen my blog post around physical bookstores that they're now opening. You know, Amazon Fresh, Amazon Go, Amazon's moving into healthcare, Amazon's moving into banking. It's a global behemoth. The two words on the right side, which is key and fundamental to Amazon's success. It's not about the products that they sell. You can get them anywhere. You know, it's not about the services they deliver. It's a website, but it's about the overall experience. So the question you may ask at this point is, did you get it? You're really focused on the customer experience, internal and external, the outside in versus the inside out strategy. So what's do this. So I want to present you with two tools that we use extensively in the strategy group. Many of you will be familiar with design thinking as a methodology. Just refresh your memory around design thinking if you are familiar with it, and introduce you to it if you're not, and then we'll move on to a related tool. But let's just quickly touch on design thinking and give you a brief view of this process, which is sort of sweeping the world in power. What's the traditional approach to problem solving? If you're going to say, look, I've got a problem, you go, oh my gosh, we need to solve it. Okay, let's jump in the room and let's think what the solutions are. So, you know, we have a problem. You know, people come up with an idea. We need to socialize that within our organization. You know, of course, socialization is important. You know, we produce lots of PowerPoint. We need to have lots of PowerPoint. We produce a business case. All this takes time. Maybe it takes several months. Then need to, you know, we need funding. We need them to spend some time building out, you know, our opportunity. We socialize the fact that it's now been built out. We need to toss this over the fence to marketing so we can release it, and guess what? We launch our solution. I'm sure for many of you, this sort of waterfall traditional approach will be familiar. We launch it, we take it out to it, and we realize maybe we need to, it wasn't quite right. In fact, maybe even the business case wasn't quite right. Or you know what? Maybe the problem that we thought was the problem to be solved is not actually the problem. Maybe there's a different problem. So if you look at this picture, what's fundamentally wrong with this picture? Just have a look at this picture and just think to yourself, I mean, there's a lot wrong with this picture, quite frankly. The wrong issue in our view is that the customer comes at the end. We do all this work, we come up with ideas, we socialize stuff, the business cases, the issue of funding, and then the customer comes. And once we go to the customer, think about years, and of course, if it takes 2 years and we spent millions of dollars, probably has changed. The people probably have changed. The business cases probably have changed. We almost have to start again. And I'm sure that this process will resonate with many of you. So, an alternative is this process called design thinking. And design thinking turns this on its head. It says you start, right? You don't start with trying to jump to the solution. You start with the customer. And how do you start with the customer? Well, you start with this keyword called empathy. In approach, outside in approach, what are we trying to do? Take a view from the customer's lens. You remember we talked about inside out and outside in? Our aspirations. It's about how do we put ourselves in the customer's shoes so that we can actually take their view of our work without baggage, without what we want to do is empathize with the customer, put ourselves in their shoes. And once we've done that, and I'll come back to how we can actually, once we've done that, we might actually find that the solve is not actually the problem that we actually need to solve. So we move into this, the find says from all the empathy that we've done, what problem is it that we actually need to solve? What's the problem? And, you know, I could give you countless. So they said, well, this is the problem, Jeffrey. And after we've done the empathy component, the empathize component, they actually realized that the problem that they thought they needed to solve is not the problem. And in fact, it's actually a much better problem that if they solve that problem, then in fact, we can actually deliver the experience for the customer that will delight them. So we empathize, we define. Now we've actually worked out the problem to be solved. It's only now we come up with solutions. And this is very showed you where normally, you know, you jump into a room and go, you know, I'm an expert, I'm a subject matter, in Mary and Fred, and Bill, Mary, and Fred are subject matter experts. We go, okay, you know the issue. So we don't do that. We empathize, we define the problem. In the ideate stage, we go very wide and then narrow. We want as possible with as many to, well, what's viable, feasible, and what's desirable. You know, you apply a viable, feasible over your. So, well, how do we bring this? How do we build this piece? How do we build the smallest, you know, cheapest possible prototype? Maybe it's out of a screen back to some of the sides and some others and say, what do you think? It's not finished, it's not complete. What do you think? So design thinking is a methodology that, you know, we use a lot. We like a lot. It's a methodology. It's not a sort of, you know, pure thing. But the fact that we force with empathy, with the end with the customer. Well, in, you know, we use very free. So a retail setting, for example, we might, you know, customer's permission, just go with them. Where their eyes go, you know, what they're doing, or we live in someone else's office for a few days. A more common way of doing this is using groups of customers, internal, external, and I emphasize conversations, which are conversations about their world. What are their? We'll come back in a little bit, and then what you do is you record everything here. And workshop, you know, now we've understood and listened to all of this. It's an art to this. There's a lot of people say, oh, but Jeffrey, we do surveys, yeah, voice of the customer. And the problem with surveys, open-ended questions, in fact, you're asking very closed-ended questions, and often some surveys, and we ask the customers, what can we do better for you? And the problem with that is that's not the question. Because if you ask someone, what can you do better for you, they don't know what the organization could understand their world, and then ideate what we could do to delight them, light up, when they go, oh, no, you could do that for. So this open-ended guide that works really, really well, and people don't expect it. People think that, you know, an organization, it's not about selling them anything. It's not about asking them what do they want, trying to understand the process, what's in their, what are their gains and what are their pains. Here's a thing like a designer. Design thinking came from this design. If I'm designing a new device or new something, I got to understand who's going to use it. How do they use it? If I was to design, for example, a new glass, carry water, do I make this in glass? But maybe about I'm designing, not about designing a glass that holds water. About during the day to hydrate themselves. It's not about the better glass. And the other key issue is we are not our stakeholders, we are not our customers. And one of the key values of design thinking is that it removes, it removes any bias, and everyone comes to bias. People can't manage to speak to stakeholders, to our customers. And I say to them, yeah, but the account managers, with KPIs about selling so many units or so much revenue, that's their goal. So they'll walk into a meeting with set views on what they want to say, where really what we want to do is understand our customers' world, again, internal or external. And just to reinforce this, no one's actually ever said this, but if you go back, and if you would have said to people, well, what would you like better about transport? A faster horse, a smaller horse, a nicer horse, a cheaper horse. They wouldn't have said, and shift from the horse to the motor car, which did. He said, the horse, it's the wrong problem to solve. The problem to solve is, how do I move from point A to point B in a different way? It's like to buy a drill. You don't, unless I actually did meet someone. I did. Who did. He was really into drills. He said, no. But we don't want the drill. We want the hole. And in fact, we don't want the hole. We want the outcome of it. It's like we've done a lot of work with the last year. And I say that no one actually wants what you sell. No one wants a mortgage. Like, I don't want a mortgage. Do you want debt? What you want is the home unit, that mortgage. In fact, you don't even want experience. Come back to the word experience. Your in that house, and because there's those. And so, just to summarize, it's a simple methodology, but it's simple. You can't. The decisions like this aren't made sitting around the boardroom table. Your stakeholders. It's a that continues to grow in both Management Institute, the outcomes, and taken up these global companies that are very heavily focused on design thinking, and they've tracked their share price against S&P 500 onwards. Delta that's rising 211% now between the S&P 500 index and the share price of those companies using design thinking. And we could argue this for a long time about how was this done and what was the methodology and so on. You can see the significant value here. The other point I want to make to you is I can draw methodology in a circular way. First of all, it's not. I may for time go to define and then find I know. So each one of these is a set of mindful. The fact empathy you can use on its own. Diverging and converging ideation you can use on its own. Thinking, well, what problem do we need to solve? Next time you're in a meeting, try this. Next time, when people go, no, we've got this problem. Come on, guys, we need to come up with a solution. Are you sure we know what the problem is? Like, do we really? How do we know that the problem is actually a problem? Have we actually talked to our customers in a way to empathize with them? And if not, maybe we should even think about coming up with a solution. You'll probably find everyone will look at you, blankly, and like which are you on, red ones or blue ones? Like, but I urge you, because a significant change of mindset, which is really, really valuable. So I'd like to build on design thinking with another tool that I want just really quickly, 2 quick examples. We did some work with Harrods Farm Markets. Harrods Farm wanted to come up with some experiences, some new experiences in the store. So we did interviews, open-end interviews with some shoppers. We followed shoppers around in the. We spent some time just watching what people do in the store, interviewing, and also some people who were. What we uncovered through this empathy component was people really liked Harrods Farm stores. They really liked Harrods Farm Markets, but they felt that they wanted to get closer to the product produce, but they wanted to understand more about where the product. So we did the Define workshop. We came up with lots of ideas through ideation. And one of them was to come up with this concept of store herd milk. So if you remember, some of you may remember back when you were young, you got milk bottles. Milk was in sort of glass milk bottles. We wanted to experience that people had in the past. So this, what you see in front of you, is an urn where you pick up a milk bottle, put it in the urn, pull out, actually fills the milk bottle, and it's single herd milk. It comes from a particular farm, and so there's experience of filling the milk bottle, and then there's you can't see it in this picture on the left, but there's a part that talks to you about the cows, and very often the farmer will come to the store and talk about the herd and the farm and the way the milk is produced and so on. And one, it gave people an experience of doing something in the store, actually filling the milk bottle. And there's complex and sophisticated mechanisms to make this happen. 2, it gave them an experience they talked to us about of getting closer to the producers in the store. So I just move on. The last tool I want to give you is something that we use all the time, and it ties into the strategy from the outside in. It also ties into empathy and coming up with the value proposition, trying to understand how do we do something that delights the customer. And it's its value proposition canvas. So there's a guy called Alex Osterwalder. Alex Osterwalder, he invented the business. And we use it basically, and it starts like this. So what's a value proposition? Let's start with a value proposition. Value proposition is a bundle of services that adds value for your customer. So a value proposition is a collection of things. And why is it called the canvas? Well, if you think about the canvas, I can draw. The sort of strategy buzzword at the moment is this canvas, business model canvas, lean stack canvas. And there's this value proposition canvas. And the value proposition is quite simple, but exceptionally powerful. There's 2 components to it. On the right, customer, and your customer saying, why should I deal with you? And on the left-hand side, organization, and you've got the what. So the customer is saying, well, why? A little differently. And this is the canvas. It looks complicated in just a minute. It's complicated, but what's important to understand is on the right side is your customer, again, internal or external customer. And on the left-hand side, so on the right-hand side, let's start with the right-hand side. Your customer has some jobs to be done. On the very right, JBTP, jobs to be done. They want things that they want to do. Right? And they've also got some pains, things that they would like to get rid of, and then they've got some gains, things that they'd like to achieve, right? That's your customer. On the left-hand side is you've got some products and services, things that you believe create gains for your customer, and you've got some pain relievers, things that you believe relieve pain for your customer. And the closer we can make the left-hand side to the right, so is the strength of our value proposition. Let me simplify the picture a little. Again, to reiterate, the right-hand side is the customer, left-hand side is you as an organization. Gains and pains. Organization has got gain creators, pain relievers, and products and services. And the theory is the closer that I can make the products and services match the customer's jobs to be done, the closer I can make the gain creators of our organization, your organization, match the gains that the customer wants and to achieve, and the closer I can make the pain relievers of the organization match the pains of the customer, so is the strength of the value proposition. And so you might say, well, okay, but we're doing this. Let me give you an example, though. I take you right back to the beginning of the power has shifted. So think about Murdoch Press, Fairfax and News. So wind the clock back 5 years. What were the customer jobs to be done? Customer jobs to be done was read a newspaper. Gains were deliver the newspaper to my door. Pains were don't make me go and get the newspaper. Just deliver it to me and make it cheap. So Fairfax News creates big printing press for newspapers. Products and services, we print newspapers. Gain creators we'll set up a network of news agents across the country to deliver the newspaper to give the customer the gain. And pain reliever, I'll produce it en masse and make it inexpensive. Problem is that right-hand side changed. The power has shifted. So the job to be done now, the problem to be solved is no longer how do we produce newspapers. The problem to be solved is give me news. So the job to be done is now deliver me news. The gain is of the customer. I want it where I want it, when I want it. And the pain is I don't want to pay for it because I want to get it anywhere. Suddenly, the incumbents on the left-hand side are still producing newspapers through news agents, and they're finding they've got to reshape their value proposition, because if they don't reshape that left-hand side of the business, they're out of business. So this is really powerful. So most of us spend most of our time on what we've got and our products and services, and we've got these gain creators, and this is our value proposition. We go off to a 2-day offsite. We say, this is our value proposition. This is our inside-out view of the world. The customer's sitting there going, hello, we've got jobs to be done, and we've got some gains, and we've got some pains. And what's important, and where design thinking and the value proposition canvas join up, is what we need to do is reshape our organization based on the right-hand side, the customer's view, the outside-in view. So what we actually need to do is, if you like, forget what's on the left for the moment. Forget our current business model. Because you know what? The power's shifted. The value proposition that got us here probably won't be the value proposition that will get you there to the next stage. Look, for example, at Myer. It's been in the press all over the place, right? So Myer's value proposition is big stores everywhere around the country, lots of stuff in it. Customer says, you know what? I don't want to go to a store anymore. I don't like stores, and I've got an option. And my job to be done is not to go to a store to find lots of stuff. My job is to buy what I want. My gain is have it delivered to me in the next 2 hours, directly to me, and the pain is I don't want to go anywhere and I don't want to pay too much for it. And the incumbent retailers are going, well, how do we transform our business model from what we've got today, which is large store formats with lots of stuff, not at the cheapest price, to now the view, the value, the world, the outside-in view of the customer. So you've got to start with this right-hand side of the canvas and then say, well, how might we, in fact, need to transform the organization, the left-hand side, to deliver experiences that delight the customer on the right-hand side. And it's challenging. And it's challenging for people who've been in an organization for a long time. It's challenging for organizations that have an incumbent business model. But the risk of not doing this far outweighs the risk of doing it. Because the risk of not doing it is the business goes at the top of the S-curve and starts to decline. And of course, the time to reshape the organization is when the organization is doing okay. Because, you know, once the organization starts to suffer, like Amaya, for example, it's then much harder to reshape the business model because cash is tight, morale is low. So we're working with organizations across the country, corporate, governments, who are saying, you know what, we've got to start with the outside-in view of the customer. How do we do that? So empathy is the starting point. Let's go and let's do 15, 20 open-ended interviews with the customer. Let's listen to what they say, not what we want to give them, what they say about their jobs to be done, their gains and pains. Let's now come back and say, well, you know, there's the left-hand side, our products and services, game creators, pain relievers, really deliver what the customer wants. And there are two ways this value proposition can go wrong. And they're really equally important. One is we're not producing products and services, game creators and pain relievers that deliver the value proposition for our customer. So we're not actually delighting them with experiences. So they'll go elsewhere because the power shifted. But equally as bad, we've got, you know, assets tied up in products and services, game creators and pain relievers that the customer actually doesn't want. My newspaper example. We're producing newspapers, we've got a printing press, we're doing all of this stuff. You know what? No one actually really wants a newspaper anymore. It's like when Census produced the yellow pages and white pages, and I took them straight from the street and put them in the recycling bin because no one actually wants it, even though their business model was that they did. So we've got a number of things tied up here. One is, you know, the outside-in view. The second is that what's on the right-hand side is where we start and then move to the left, not from what we've got to offer from our organisation as a customer. Following on that, we may need to reshape our business model. We may need to reshape our value proposition. I put it to you that there is not a vertical at the moment, healthcare, education, retail, financial services, that does not need to reshape its value proposition, that does not need to reshape its left-hand side. And you do that, one way of doing it is the tool that we use called design thinking. Let me take you back in the last couple of minutes to this concept of the experience. If it's the experience that counts, if we remember experiences and not products and services, the challenge I put to you is to think through how is your organization going to reshape its value proposition to deliver experiences that overwhelm and delight the customer. Because I put it to you that those organizations that take that as a challenge today, and we're working with many of them, those are the organizations that will succeed in the future. I was in a somewhat stressful meeting yesterday morning with a law firm, and I won't mention the name, not one of our clients. And the law firm was saying that one of the partners was saying, look, we hear what our customers were saying, but we really know what their problem is. And that view in our experience doesn't work anymore. You can no longer dismiss what the customer, their jobs to be done, their gains, their pains, with the view we know best because we've been in the business a long time, we're subject matter experts. It doesn't work anymore. So the challenge for you is, how will you create experiences that overwhelm and delight the customer How will you reshape the left-hand side of your value proposition canvas? And how will you make sure that from your inside-out strategy is matched with an outside-in strategy? So just let me summarize. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Power shifted and will continue to shift. It's a given. What's important is a complementary outside-in strategy from your inside-out strategy. It's not about the product. It's not about the service. It's about the experience, and it's about the experience that's going to delight the customer. Design thinking is a methodology that we use all the time to give you the how. The steps in design thinking at a very high level, simple level are empathy. Put yourself in the customer's shoes, understand what the problem to be solved is, go diverge and converge around ideation. Prototype, you need to prototype what's the MVP around this to be able to go back to the customer and test it out. Undoubtedly, your value proposition needs reshaping. And the value proposition canvas, if used in the right way, and we do this all the time, is a really good tool to reshape the value proposition. And again, it's not about the product, it's not about the service, it's not about the experience. It's all about the experience. So I want to thank you for participating. Everyone stayed on the call, which has been fantastic. Hopefully that we've delivered some value to you. We'd love to follow up with you around these tools, around these techniques, around these processes. Very open at any stage to have a call with you, a coffee with you, and discuss these elements in more detail. What we've covered off here, trust me, is important. These are issues that smart organizations in this country and globally are grappling with. And I look forward to, those of you who are our clients, I look forward to continuing this discussion with you. And those of you who aren't yet, I very much look forward to having a coffee with you to talk about these things as we move forward. Thank you so much for attending. I've been really excited about sharing this with you and look forward to catching up with you soon.